Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. My name is Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and I welcome you to join me as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. You may also wish to join the conversation on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page or access additional VIP content as a premium subscriber via Patreon. For just a couple of dollars a month, you can get an early access to episodes, additional bonus content, and your chance to connect with my guests. To do so, simply visit patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. Let's talk near death.
It was 1992 was my first death, 93 was my second. My first death, I actually choked on my own vomit. I was so inebriated, I could not move. And I started to, let go. And as soon as I did that, I lifted up out of my body and hovered, and I could see myself on my bed. And I looked for, what was around me, and there was nothing. There was no light. There was no joy. In fact, it was very dark.
Today I'm joined by Carrie Kohan, a two-time near-death experiencer, and she's also author of the book, The 5 Lessons of Life. Carrie is a spiritual coach with the ability to look into her clients' timelines and pinpoint exactly what it is that's holding them back in life. Based in Canada and Portugal, I'm really excited to have you join us. So Carrie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much. I've really enjoyed meeting you, and I can hardly wait to share my story with everyone.
I can hardly wait to hear it because I know that you're a two-time experiencer, and this just gets me so excited. So Carrie, take us back. What was going on in your life and how did this all start to happen?
Well, it was 1992 was my first death, 93 was my second. And I was basically an atheist. I had turned away from traditional teachings in the church, and I had no belief system whatsoever. I was beating myself up incessantly because I had had an abortion when I was 24, and now at the age of 27, I had spent 3 years drinking myself into the ground and basically wanting to die. And Spirit listened. And took me out, But what was really interesting was my first death, I actually choked on my own vomit. I was so inebriated, I could not move. And I started to, let go and couldn't move. And so I choked. And as soon as I did that, I lifted up out of my body and hovered, and I could see myself on my bed. And I looked for, what was around me, and there was nothing. There was no light. There was no joy. In fact, it was very dark. And I debated for a long time putting this part of the story into my book because it was so unexpected and heavy, dark. I came toe-to-toe with what we would know as the devil. And I had no belief system in that there was a dark side here on this realm. But I came to see that he was very much there. And, it was an energetic battle for my soul. So knowing that, realizing that I had something very dark in front of me, facing me, I thought, well, if there is a devil, there has to be a light. This is a world of contrast, left and right, up and down, in and out. If there's something this evil standing in front of me, there has to be something good. So intuitively and instinctively, I called in, God and Jesus, be by my side now. And to my surprise, they came. And as soon as Creator was to my right and Jesus was to my left, the entity that was in front of me, his eyes bulged and he ran. He booked it. He was gone. So I had a few brief moments where I could speak to Creator, and I asked, why did this happen? And the answer came through extremely clear. I always hear stuff through my right ear and just in behind it. And that was where the answer came through. And I heard very clearly that, he felt that I was giving up on my spirit and my soul was there to take. So he was, there to take it. And by calling in Creator and commanding and demanding that light come within me, I changed the course of my direction. And so from that point forward, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in between. There was, a black void. I saw that there's a white void, which we see as heaven. There's a gray void, which is kind of a mucky, murky soup where people that transition, if they're beating themselves up like I was, they can actually stay kind of stuck in that soup. And then there's the black void. The black void was what I saw when I first came out of that first near-death experience. I experienced it as soon as, Creator left. I went to bed and this blackness started to come from the ceiling. I thought, oh no, it's back again. That darkness is back again. And I prayed, I tried everything, but this deep booming voice came in with reassurance that everything was fine. And I'm Aboriginal. I'm Canada's Aboriginal. I'm Métis, so I'm Ojibwe and Cree and French. And what we believe is that raven, the blackness of raven, the iridescent color, is the gatekeeper of the black void. And that's where all illusion begins. And that's what I came to realize, was that blackness that I stepped into was like a reboot for your body, mind, spirit, where you could create whatever it is that you desire. And so for manifestation, that's what I do. I close my eyes and I invite myself to go into that black void, where all illusion begins. And that's how I love to manifest. It's like a black chalkboard in the sky, and you can create whatever it is you desire. It's really beautiful. So that was the first death. And then I died a second time. So the second death came a year later. And I had turned my life around, quit drinking. I moved to a hippy dippy house. I call it the hippy dippy house affectionately. There were 11 to 22 of us living in that house, depending on, how many were. It had second house in the back of it that was where workshops were, and this is in 1993, right, where meditation was really starting to become a buzzword, and people were starting to open up to those modalities. So I was living in this house, and I thought everything was going really great. I was on track. Well, lo and behold, I had a heart attack, and I had met the love of my life. I was engaged. I thought everything was clicking, and heart disease runs in our family. I don't believe in hereditary disease. After all the experience that I've gone through, I realized that it's hereditary thought. So because I believed that my grandmother died at 32, my mom had a quadruple bypass at 42, I was susceptible to heart disease. And being, So anyways, I died my second time. Only this time I came out of my body and a huge brown bird came swooping in and picked me up by the scruff of the neck. And there's so many circles within my story. That brown bird ended up being the phoenix, and the phoenix was also, there's confirmation. When I came back, there were so many things that happened that were confirming that this actually did happen. It wasn't a figment of my imagination. So the bird brought me up to the white void, which I came to know as heaven, right? And in that realm, I was met with the Council of Men, and I had never heard of the Council of Men before. They were extraordinary. They were like elders, in the white kind of golden. It wasn't even iridescent. It was more clothing with gold sashes, and Creator was there. Jesus was there. And again, being an atheist, I still was fearful to speak the word Jesus or God. It was like, oh my God, But I came to realize that no, they were very much there for me, and that's where the lessons proceeded. The 5 lessons of life. They gave them to me. And in fact, just as I was leaving, they kept saying, Carrie, you've got too much to do. You got to go back. You got too much to do. And I was like, I was a drunk. I was a bartender at Richards on Richards. It was a big nightclub. And, what the heck am I going to do? And yeah, they kept insisting I go back. When I came back, I came to realize that, we all have a purpose-filled life, and we're all part of the whole. And it really is for us to determine what it is that we feel is right inside. Like, if I might add, before we started the interview, I was asking, so how you got into this? And you had a near-death experience when you were 12, yes? And you had that calling, you had that voice, you just had a knowingness that this was something that you needed to do. So many of us have that calling. It's the voice within, right? And whether we think it's ourselves or spirit or whatever, we just know that it's speaking the truth. But so many of us ignore it. They poo-poo it. They put it down. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. Oh my God, it's too big, right? Too challenging. But once you step into it, look at the magic you can create.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing, that voice, isn't it? It's often, it will push us in directions that we are absolutely terrified of, or feel like we're so inadequate. And yet somehow we just end up having everything we need along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I had that voice.
I love it.
Yeah, when I came back, like I said, they kept saying, Carrie, you've got too much to do. And I was like, what am I going to do? What difference can I make, And and when I came back, it was a couple of years later, I did get married. I had our first daughter, and we were living in a northern community in northern Canada. And oh gosh, we had a 3-time convicted pedophile enter our house and tried to kidnap our daughter.
Oh my goodness.
He walked through our little home, and she was asleep in the nursery next to me. I was cutting vegetables in the kitchen, and I sensed someone behind me. So I turned around. Yeah. He's 6 feet. I'm 4'11", and Mama Bear came on me. I just roar, and I chased him out of the house. So that was the start of hearing the voices and being pushed. I kept seeing myself in front of a podium speaking to the masses, and I was like, yeah, no, that ain't going to happen. I'm not a public speaker. I would hyperventilate at the thought of public speaking. It was like, that's not happening. And lo and behold, it just persisted. The voice was so constant. So finally I made a deal with God. I was actually, those were in the days where I'd make deals. Okay, so, if you really want me to do this, you got to make it easy, because I've been through way too much here. You got to make it easy for me. And it all has to come with ease and grace. And lo and behold, as soon as I was open to it, I felt the feeling to make one phone call, and that was to the city that we lived in Calgary, the premier of the province. And Ralph Klein was his name. And he was so proactive as a politician. He was an ex-reporter that turned into a politician. And he took it and ran. He supplied everything for me. His staff pulled out all the stops. They got the chair rentals for me. They brought the police chief in. We had a citywide rally, within 24 hours. We had it organized for that weekend, and media came from coast to coast. It was the very first public rally pro-children's rights and against pedophilia. I don't like saying against. It was more pro, changing the laws and protecting our children and doing something different than what we were doing. So that was the start of it in 1998. And for 17 years, I've been a national child advocate. So I've used these 5 lessons. I've put them into, application. And by doing so, I've amended 14 laws in Canada, including a lot of them were American laws that I brought in to our country. So like Amber Alert, helped bring that in with Heather Forsyth. She was in LA. and oh gosh, sex offender registry, raise the age of consent, put in the Child Internet Protection Act, sampling for child pornography. I worked a lot with the police departments, and so, there was a time where with police, they would have to go through every little bit of evidence and log it. And it was soul destroying for those officers. And I thought, we've got to do a better way. So I put in applications federally for sampling. And after, I think it took 4 years, but we got it through, so that helps.
Wow.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. No wonder you had to come back. Imagine if none of that had happened.
Yeah. The kicker about all this was I was illiterate. So, here saying, come on now, you got to do that. How can I write laws if I'm illiterate? I was reading at a grade 3 level. I mean, I was in the dummy class in grade 8, failed grade 12. I was told I was lazy and stupid and all that dialogue, right, that learning disabled often had of my generation. And lo and behold, everything came with ease and grace. It was like spirit given and driven. And so it was just listening and being in the right place, right time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge difference, isn't it? Being available and then pulling through with what you think you're meant to be doing.
That's right.
Wow, Carrie, I have so many things in my head, but I'm sure my listeners are wondering just as much as I am. What are the 5 lessons? Are you allowed to share them with us? Or?
Oh, of course. I was apprehensive when I first started doing interviews, but I realized, no, I have to give it away. I have to give all this information away. and the 5 lessons are really basic, but they're simple, but they're profound. So 5 lessons are unconditional love, forgiveness, compassion, faith, and trust. It's as simple as that. When you apply those 5 lessons to others, you free them. But more importantly, when you apply them to yourself, you free yourself. So when I was in heaven, so the way that I was shown the 5 lessons, again, I was just about to leave and say goodbye to Creator and the Council of Men. And Creator, God, Allah, whatever name you want to put on. I saw him as pure light energy. I saw him as God as well. In fact, I'll digress. I asked him when I first arrived, I can see you go by many names. What do I call you? And I loved his answer because he or she or the energy of him said, it matters less the name you call me as long as you call my name, right? And so in that, I thought, okay, it's really just pure energy and pure love that I was speaking to. So when I was about to leave, this light Creator said to me, if you were to ask anything and take that knowledge back with you and apply it when the time is right, what would your question be? I remember standing there just...
no pressure.
Oh, yeah, exactly, right? Well, what could I ask? And this beam of light came zipping from, around me, and it went right in the tender part behind my ear, and it went into the center of my brain, and it literally just exploded, right? And when it exploded, I had the idea. It was there. And I asked him, I've got it. Okay, I understand, God loves everyone. He loves the rapists, the murderers, the molesters, the people that do the most heinous things on this planet. How could you love people that do such horrible things? And he said, it's easy. It's like this. And when he waved his hand, I was instantly transported into another room. It was a white void room, but there was a counselor sitting in front of me, and I could see my memory self. It was who I was before I came to this plane. So I was already seeing like parallel dimensions almost, where I could see my memory self. And I realized this was the moment that we were deciding who I was going to be, what lessons I was going to learn, and what were the contracts the contracts that I would be agreeing to, the spiritual contracts that I would be agreeing to in order to raise my spirit and grow it beyond measure. If I did this properly, right? And I don't want to say properly. If I lived my life to the fullest, the potential. So, anyways, I saw the counselor there, and we started to talk about when I would be molested at the age of 3, and my memory self was going, woohoo, what an experience this is going to be. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Your jaw is dropping. That's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. I remember sitting there and going, I have to object. Like, it makes me right now. I literally had to object. And the counselor froze everything. She froze the moment in time. She stepped forward and she said, what your memory self remembers that you don't, you remembered to forget when you came to the other side of the veil, right? What she remembers is that everything that you experience on this plane is a gift, and it is your opportunity to apply the 5 lessons of life, and that's unconditional love, forgiveness, compassion, faith, and trust. So when you think of your molester, when you come to a point where you can think of them and have unconditional love for them, faith, trust that you're on the right path, forgiveness for what was said and done on both their part and your part, and compassion that, where was their life? What did they go through to get to where they were at in that point in life? When you can actually forgive them and have compassion and love, that's when, you're able to, it's almost like a video game, and go to the next level. But it also applies to yourself. When you can say to yourself, I absolutely unconditionally love myself, and I forgive myself for all those things that I said and did. And I have compassion for who I was and who I am here today and where I'm going. And I have faith and trust that I am safe, I am guarded, that everything is happening for my best and highest good, and that I'm on the right path. When you can actually come to that point with every single incident and either traumatic or dramatic event that you've been through, that's when you find your freedom. And that's when, like a video game, you're going to the next level. And I believe that that's why we are here. I saw it as the spirit song, that when we all, as a whole, it's like we're all cells in a big body of life, right? Some of us are cancer cells, some of us are white cells and T cells and, red blood cells. So when we all work as a whole, that's when we lift and become part of the spirit song. I don't know what a spirit song is, but I know it will reveal itself just as quantum physics and parallel dimension and all of that is. And I saw all of that in 1993, parallel dimensions, right? And that was about suicide. I saw an endless loop that we often live in from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime until we can get through our life and over obstacles, practicing the 5 lessons of life and embracing them and going, oh my God, right now, I get enthusiastic about this. Right now, I am so thrilled that I was molested when I was 3 years old, because had I not been molested, I wouldn't have known that energy when we had a molester come into my house and tried to kidnap our daughter, right? I knew that he was not just being neighborly because he was our neighbor. I knew that he had other intentions because I had experienced that energy before. And I wouldn't have changed all those laws. There are millions of children around our country, if not the globe, that have been protected from those laws. So thank God I was molested when I was 3, because we wouldn't have changed all those laws. And we would, millions of kids. Yeah. They would be affected.
I find this so interesting, this part of the conversation, because I do get asked quite a bit, what about people who hurt other people, so murderers or thieves or molesters, or there's so many people out there that do harm to other people, and our instant reaction is, oh, they're so bad, they're so negative, they're nasty people. But the question keeps coming back to me from other people as well, What if that was their soul contract? What if that's why they were here? You talked about the body with all the different parts of the body.
Yes.
What if their part in this role was to be, I don't know, the growth or the negative part in the body? So do you think that people who are living out what we'd say a life of harm or a life of crime or a life that's not pleasing to many people, do you believe that they could potentially be aligned with their purpose and absolutely on track and filled with the right type of love?
Absolutely. I believe, okay, so let's go back to that room where the counselor was with my memory self. I kept protesting. I kept saying, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. This is too far out for me. Then all of a sudden, 12 light beings came into the room, and they were angelic. They reminded me of the movie Cocoon, you know, when you unzipped, the aliens unzipped their human suit and out came the 5-pointed star. They had a head and arms and legs and that's what they looked like, just glowing, beautiful, radiant light. 2 of those beautiful soul pack, what I learned was they were part of my soul pack. They travel with me from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And we change roles. Sometimes they're a mother or a daughter or a sister or a brother or best friend, and it's that instant recognition on this plane. So when you meet someone and you go, oh, I know you. God, I feel like I know you so well. They're often, that's your soul pack. They have been with you from lifetime to lifetime. And I got that the reason why we have soul packs is that we spend less time getting to know one another, and we spend more time learning from our lessons. Really, what we're here for is the story is just a story, but it is the lessons within the story that needs to be the focus. So that way we can grow and move forward. So when the soul pack came, 2 of my members of the 12 volunteered to be the molesters at the age of 3. And I watched as I witnessed them lift up and go zooming down to earth. And it was like we felt and heard and saw everything that they went through. So right from in utero, where their parents were screaming, one of the mothers was an addict. So, you know, the baby felt a lot of the time inebriated and out of it, dizziness. It was a very nauseating feeling, actually, witnessing that part. They grew up, and as they came together, they met and became a couple, and they created child porn for a European magazine. And so as they came together, and I was 3 years old, you know, everything froze. The timeline that we were witnessing just simply froze. And I remember looking back at the counselor and going, you know, well, what's going to happen? Because I had a memory up to a certain point of being molested, but I had no memory beyond that. And she said, you know, that memory will come in time when you're very much ready for it. But until then, the lesson for me was, don't you understand that they had to be your best friends in heaven to volunteer to have a hell of a life that they did in order to come forward and bless you? It is a blessing. Bless you with the opportunity to practice those 5 lessons of life. And it is forgiveness, compassion, faith, trust, and unconditional love. And unconditional love also steps hand in hand with gratitude. Gratitude kind of envelopes, you know, all of the lessons, right? It's the umbrella. Yeah. So I believe that, and if someone is living a life that they're not proud of or they don't feel good about, they can shift it like that. It is as easy as turning on or off a light switch, because it's all energy. So if, you know, for instance, you're a suicidal soul, you know, you're dreaming of suicide or thinking of suicide, which I've done as well, you know, realizing that that's not the answer. Yeah, there's a whole nother explanation there. I don't know how we're doing for time, but you can turn it on or off by simply like a light switch and saying, from this day forward, this is who I'm going to be. I am letting go. The past doesn't equal the future. I am letting go of that old story, and I'm going to embrace the lessons, absolutely. But it is time for me to move forward in a different light, right? Embrace the light.
That's amazing. I love all the lessons that you've taken out of your experience. It's almost like I can hear how positive you are, and you're saying it was a lesson, it was an opportunity for growth, opportunity to learn. It's just incredible. I'd love to go back more into your near-death experience. You've talked about how you went through 3 voids, so the dark void, the grey void, and the white void. Now, I've heard a lot about the dark void. I actually experienced that myself. And then the white void seems to be filled with love and brightness and lightness and a very strong sense of celebration and welcoming. Can you tell us a little bit more about this grey void that's in the middle of these 2?
Sure. I'd like to actually tweak that a little bit. It's not the dark void that I was in. It was a black void. Big difference. The black void was filled with as much love as the white void, which was shocking to me because it was still heavenly. But it was where the illusion begins. So it was like a clean slate. It was really beautiful. The gray void, however, I haven't read, I don't read much, right? I haven't read, I read like a smidgen of another near-death experience. And I believe it was a doctor who was in some kind of like abyss where he was floating and he could hear contorted sounds and noises and faces would pop up. That is the gray void. And I saw it exactly how he described it. So that was really exciting that someone else saw the same thing for me. And the gray void is for lost souls. It's where you are leaving your body and you're unsure as to where you want to go, right? Often it's coma victims or, where you're suspended in time. And that's the gray void. So you can stay there for a long time, and even after death, you can still stay there. It was interesting because I saw, what's it called? Oh, I've gone blank. The Mexican tradition where All Saints Day, right, where they'll. The community prays for those that have passed to the other side. I saw very clearly that the power of prayer was extraordinary, that someone that is stuck in that gray void, the power of someone praying can actually reach into that gray void and act like a hand pulling them out and bringing them into the light. So, old traditions that have been for eons, you look at native traditions especially that have been here forever, those are the traditions that there's something to them, most definitely. So the gray void, it's like a nomad's zone. It's a nowhere zone, where you just kind of float in suspension, and you have to muster up faith in that zone. It may feel like you're there forever, but everyone eventually gets out of the gray zone and goes to the light. Everyone always goes into the light eventually. And when you go into the light, for instance, let's go to suicidal souls. Someone who commits suicide, sometimes, they'll take one or two routes. Some will go to the gray zone and they'll float in there because they're still beating themselves up and, the self-esteem and all that, blah, 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 blah. Others will go straight to the light. And either way, when you get to the light, you have a life review and you have a rest and you just review what you did, how you saw your world. And with suicidal souls, they get to come back and do it all over again. Many of us do, but suicidal souls especially. So it isn't a way out. In fact, it's the way back, where you come back and you start all over again with the same parents, the same situations. You get to live the whole thing all over again to the point where you had committed suicide. and it's like Groundhog Day. You'll keep doing that loop until you get enough strength to get over that point of thinking about suicide and actually following through. When you don't follow through and you say, enough, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to live a purpose-filled life. I'm going to find joy. I'm going to find, what's good about this situation and ask better questions. When you do that, that's when you break that cycle, that endless loop. And it was interesting. I was reading, it was nirvana, right? The Buddhists believe that nirvana is, the breaking of karma. It's the breaking of the cycle of birth and death. And, to come back from this experience and then see that this is ancient texts that talk about this endless loop of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death, right? I realized that again is confirmation, because I saw it as an endless loop. So when I think of suicide, if I'm really, really down and beaten down, I mean, I've had death threats, I've had all kinds of stuff doing the work that I did. I went through a lot. There were points where I thought about it, and gosh, then I realized, well, wait a minute, I'm going to have to come back and do this all over again. And do I really want to do this? And so my question was, okay, so how do you do that all over again? And in 1993, we didn't know about parallel dimensions or multiple universes or quantum, soup or quantum physics. But that's what they said. It's that you would come back in a parallel dimension with the same parents, same situations, living the same life. And because time doesn't exist, it's in the here and now. It's like that. Right?
Yeah. So do you think that we can be in multiple dimensions all at the same time? Or, okay, we don't cycle through a whole lifetime and then potentially move to a different one?
Well, you do, and you do. Yes. Yes and
Love
yes.
it. Yeah.
Right? Because this is the life that you're consciously in, but you're also consciously in many lifetimes, infinite amount of lifetimes at the same time. I used to always wish, gosh, I wish there were like 10 of me. And then I realized there's like an
probably are.
Yes. And, it goes back to the belief system that we are all one. So, what you are experiencing and what I'm experiencing is really the same thing. It's different people, different places, different situations, but they're all the basic 5 lessons, right? My former husband, when I first met him, he was very metaphysical, and he had a vision that was really profound. He saw the Akashic records in a dream, and that was what he first said to me, was that he could pull from the library of life, right? And it was like a circular column that went up to the infinite, and it was all books. And at first he was pulling books out of the library that were family and friends. And so he could just hold on to the book and understand, like a life review, understand everything that they went through and the lessons that they learned. Put the book back, he'd grab another one. And then he would start to look at famous people. And what he realized, that all of them had the same 5 basic lessons, right? And it was shortly after that I had my near-death experiences, and I was shown the 5 lessons of life. So it all kind of fits in.
Yeah. Wow. What do you think would have happened if you hadn't have called on God in that first experience when you were in the darkness and you said that you saw what you would call the devil?
Yeah.
If you hadn't have known to call on God, what would have happened, do you think?
Oh, I would have been gone. I would have gone into that gray abyss. It was very, very dark and not pleasant. I could feel myself slipping away. And it was like what we see in movies. It was really bizarre. And I think Hollywood is actually very much in sync with spirituality. They kind of feed to us things that are up and coming, things that are to come. Because there are many in Hollywood that have insights, right? So I saw the hypnotic eyes, and it was like a serpent, and the serpent was mesmerizing me, and then it shifted into this male. It morphed into a male, and he was handsome. I remember thinking to myself, so this is where they get the term devilishly handsome from, right? But his eyes were still serpent-like, and they were still they were undulating. They were mesmerizing me. And so in that, I could feel myself almost in a hypnotic state being taken away. And yeah, I think that, okay, so going back to the Council of Men, what they shared with me was that our whole purpose here is to grow our spirit beyond measure. But because Earth is one of a few places that we can choose from that has free will, because we have free will here, we can either grow our spirit beyond measure, or we can return to the light worse off than whence we came. And that was their words, right? Worse off than whence we came. I thought it was profound, because I realized I came as a really bright little sprite. I was a real positive little girl, and just filled with joy and love. And I had beaten myself up so much that my light was dull. I was really not a happy little camper by any means. And so I realized then that, I was going to return to the light eventually. I think I would have slipped away, but I would have stayed in that gray void for a very long time, feeling like it was a long time, until I had the gumption, the fortitude within me to rise up and have that faith, and to call out to Creator to come be by my side. So, yeah.
I love it. I love your tenacity, and I can just feel the passion that you have to truly live life, which is just such a beautiful thing. I really appreciate you sharing this, Carrie. I know that today you're based in Canada, but you've got some work that you do in Portugal. You run retreats and things like that to help people connect.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about those.
We bought a retreat center, and it's all enclosed. It's fenced in with an electric gate, and it's 4 minutes from 4 of the best beaches in all the Algarve. And it is a little oasis, very, very private. We ran it as an Airbnb. We had people just, coming from around the world and renting, these villas, and there's 5 homes in total. And I just had this feeling that, it's that little voice again, build it and they will come, build it and they will come. I kept hearing this, and I realized, okay, it's time to convert it into a retreat center, or even a communal living center. So this is my hope and my dream right now, that I am opening up to. We're making it extremely inexpensive. Like, I'm talking 16.50, 16 euros a night for a bed in a shared accommodations. And it's for artists, for writers, for musicians, for people that just want to grow spiritually with like-minded people. And there's so many beautiful areas on the property. I was married there last November, so there's fire pits where, we can gather. Being Aboriginal, there's, we do a lot of circle work, a lot of, intention. And I'm also an artist as well. So a lot of painting, a lot of just peacefulness. And that's what I'm creating now. It's called villaheaven.co.co. So if you look at villaheaven.co, that's the website that is just up and coming. I would also look at my other website, carriekohan.com, and it's CarrieKohan.com. That website, it has my tour on, but I do one-to-one sessions. I came back with a gift of sight, even more amplified. Being Aboriginal, I've had a gift of sight since I was 3. I had out-of-body experiences. I've seen aliens. I've seen all kinds of stuff. That's a whole nother topic,
Yeah.
But, whole nother stuff. But in that, I've come back. And so now, like you say, I'm a spiritual coach. I'm a peak performance coach. I work with celebrities, peak athletes, and, single moms. I work with the whole gamut, and usually on a sliding scale. Right. So you can go to carriekohan.com, and you can register for whatever city you're in. And we can either do it online, a session online, or in person on this tour that I'm doing with the book tour. So.
Wow, sounds amazing. We will definitely include that information. I'm absolutely sold. I want to pack my bags and come to Portugal right now to join you.
You are more than welcome to come. I can hardly
Maybe
wait
we can do a live session from there or something. Let me work on this. But Carrie Kohan, thank you. I've so enjoyed talking. I feel like we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. I can't even get my words out. We could talk all day. There's so much in this, and I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. But those 5 lessons, I mean, you've really impacted me, and I know the listeners will be getting that as well. So
thank you.
Carrie Kohan, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate, and also if people want the book, it was actually just brought in with Ingram Sparks, so it's going into all the bookstores. You can go to your local bookstore and ask for it, or you can go on to Amazon worldwide. Okay.
We will definitely get the links to that.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. Don't forget you can also pick up your VIP access pass for additional content at patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. You can connect with us via the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, and I look forward to catching you for another episode soon.